Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
I'm your host, Con John Turk, and on this episode of the Blind Apex Podcast, we're going to dive a little deeper into data. Hopefully this builds on episode 12, The Basics of Data, or The Basics of Squiggly Lines as it was named, with Peter Kraus. Joining me, longtime data nerd, and AIM dealer with a vast knowledge of hardwiring and the software for AIM, Matt from trailbreak.com. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So before we get too deep, your website says trailbreak.com, but I don't see any brake parts on your website. So can I ask where that name came from?
Definitely. And would you like the little bit of a longer answer, probably where we're going to get first, or would you like me to give it to you after?
We can do it. We can do it now. That's fine.
All right. So getting into driving, I started playing with cars. You know, I was the kid holding the flashlight for my dad when I was 4 or 5.
Okay.
And my dad has a background in aftermarket parts, and there's a big company called Keystone. And way back when they started, he was the first warehouse manager and a salesman, and worked through all that, and then got into drag racing because his boss was a guy, Joe Amato, who owned Keystone and was a big drag racer for a long time. So I grew up around everything. And when I was turned 18, my best friend had a Porsche 914.
Okay.
And we'd always given him grief about it.
I have to stop you because I have a bunch of degenerates that listen. Keystone, not as in the beer, right?
Correct. Not the beer.
Okay.
The automotive company that Joey sold it a long time ago now. And I think it's owned by LKQ.
Okay.
I think that's who bought it. But a giant aftermarket and performance parts warehouse that sold all the parts stores and all that.
Okay. So let's get back to this 914 Porsche.
Yeah. So the 914, a couple of us really rode him hard on it about how ugly it was. And the Porsche factory color is called Phoenix Red, but it's actually the color of orange of Tang the drink. If you remember that.
Yes. And they look faded today. They look like a faded red today, but they're actually not faded red.
Right. So we rode him all the time about this car, and he wouldn't drive it in the rain, and it was ugly, and it was this ugly color. And then he said, you know what? When you turn 18, then you can do a Porsche Club of America autocross. You have to autocross my car. And we went out then. It was a Friday night before we went, and he taught me how to shift it because I don't know if you know, they're a dog leg first. So first is to the left and backwards.
Okay.
And then it's kind of hard to hit second gear without grinding on reverse. And the best way to describe shifting an old 914 is it's like a broomstick and a bucket of sand.
Okay.
So he taught me how to shift this thing. And the next morning we met up with another friend, and I was driving through the back roads of New Hampshire into Massachusetts, keeping up. And I just couldn't believe how this car handled. It was amazing. And we autocrossed. I had a great time. And then that fall, he let me do my first track event, 1998 at Lime Rock. And we actually had trouble with the 914. I ended up driving his dad's 944.
Mm-hmm.
And I was seriously hooked. Like, I'd grown up going to the drag races, being around my dad with car stuff. We went to all the Saturday night races and stuff at the local short track. And then when I drove that first event, it like changed everything. And then I was like, oh man, I need a Porsche. I need a 914.
Okay.
Yeah. So like in college, you know, like I sold the car that I had to get some money, and I had like $4,000, and I kept looking for this Porsche all through college. And I ended up finally finding the car I still have today, you know, and even to the point I had a very generous scholarship to college. and really a full boat pretty much. And I thought about transferring from my school either to Ithaca or Elmira, because back then it was like $100 a track day.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, geez, I can come up with $100 during the week and I can go to the racetrack every weekend. And then the sensible part of me hit in and said, like, wait a minute, full scholarships are worth way more than a couple track weekends. So I started doing track events. So I'd get out of class on Friday afternoon, drive from New Hampshire out to Watkins Glen, drive all weekend, close the track Sunday night, drive back, be in class Monday morning at 8:00. And I became really involved in the Porsche Club. The region out here is really terrific. And I drove with a bunch of great regions, great instructors and support. And then I'm kind of bad at the years on this one, like around 2010 or 2011, AIM came out with the AIM Solo, the first one. And it was this little GPS device, it's barely thicker than your phone. And it was $400. And one of the Porsche Club members was an AIM dealer. And he said, hey, if you want to bring some of these to the event and pass them out to people and everybody use it, that'd be kind of neat. And I was like, well, that sounds amazing, because through college, I'd helped some people with race cars and we had data systems, but my knowledge of them then was pretty different. It's kind of funny now is we'd pull up the data and really just look to see if it over revved. And there were some guys with some really built up 911s and 944 turbos. And I helped a guy with a Formula Continental a lot. And we look at it and it was just like, oh, geez, yep, you over revved it. Like, oh, it should be okay. And then we moved on. That was like kind of the extent of what we were using.
Okay.
And that was my experience. And with the Solo, for less, 10 years later, 15 years later, the Solo comes out. It has the GPS G-forces in it, and it has the speeds and the lap times. And I had learned a lot more, and I was a much different and better driver 10 years later. And it blew my mind how good it was. And to share all the data, I made a website that was actually Brake Fast, but BRAKEFAST. And I had that for a little bit to share the data and kind of teach people how to use it. Mm-hmm. And the guy who loaned them to me said, hey, if you ever want to be like a sub dealer and help people with these and sell them, like, I'll help you out. And I realized I was helping everybody at the racetrack with them, and I was doing all of it, but just not selling it. So I said, well, hey, I want to do it. And he goes, well, why don't you just buy them from AIM? And we laugh now because they were pretty picky about who they let be dealers. And at the time I was like, oh, I'll sell some of them and it'll help pay for my habit. And it'll be kind of fun. And it's all friends and stuff, right? I get to help my friends out. Right. And the next thing I knew, it was like starting to take off. And I just thought, instead of the website being Brake Fast, I thought Trailbrake was better. So I switched it, not ever thinking where it would end up, 10 or 12 years later. So that's the really long version of how it ended up just being Trailbrake. And it was sort of like it had to do with the driving and what I was trying to teach people, and all that. And then it just kept going. And then once you get known for a website or something, right, it's like changing your email. You can't ever do that.
Can't do that. Yeah, you were branding yourself before you knew you were branding yourself. So
I had no idea. And it really blows my mind sometimes that this thing that I started to kind of help people out and to sell some products and try to make enough extra money to pay for my track addiction has turned into a full-time job and all these great relationships and being able to help people. I mean, I've sold stuff to people all over the world. So it's been pretty wild.
Yeah.
But neat too.
Yeah, I mean, entrepreneurship is an adventure, and then you're doing it in something that you're passionate about. So, and something you enjoy on the side, right? Which is driving on track and racing. So, yeah, you can't ask for much better.
Yeah, and right. Every once in a while, when I'm having a bad day or something's a struggle, I'm like, "What are you upset about?" You get to play with really cool race cars,
right?
And work with great people. Like in 12, 15, whatever number of years this is, in my 26 years of going to the racetrack and driving, there's very few people that aren't just a great person, that you don't enjoy, that aren't really wonderful, that are nice to be around. So I'm like, how cool is that, right? Like, I get to help people, I get to sell them something, I get to make a living, I get to play with race cars.
Yeah, I can only dream of that. I mean, I have a podcast, but that's about it. I get to talk to people about racing, and that basically is saving my marriage, so I don't have to talk to my wife about it all the time. She doesn't hear about race car stuff all the time, just half the time. So,
well, you might be saving mine at the same time, because I'm pretty sure there's a fair amount of time that my wife gets a little bit tired of hearing it too.
Yeah. It takes a special woman or spouse in general to put up with a racer. So,
absolutely.
So I was going to ask you about your background, but you kind of gave us the background getting into telling us that story on how trailbreak.com came about. If listeners haven't been to trailbreak.com, you should go there. He's got a resource page. It's probably, I don't know, 24 blogs or so that are on there that I was perusing before we sat down. And one thing I really wanted to talk about was you start talking about data for driver improvement and data for car improvement. So can you just, it should be intuitive, but can you define it for us?
Oh, definitely. So, I've been lucky to work with a lot of great people and to be around a lot of great people. And one of the really great ones is Roger Cadell, who's the national training manager for AIM. And he always says it's sort of like a pyramid. And you have the vehicle health. That's the first thing you check in data to make sure the engine's not blowing up, the battery's working, you have good oil pressure, all that kind of stuff. And then you have vehicle performance and you have the driver performance. And one of the things of my philosophy of how I look at data, because I was a driver before I was a real data guy, is I think about it in that I only get to do three things when I'm in a car. I can hit the throttle, I can hit the brakes, I can turn the steering wheel. And how you put those together and how you use those and you work the car with it is that driver performance. Like, are you doing things the best way? And then those are pretty simple sensors, right? Like, you have RPM from the engine, you get speed, and then you have the throttle position, the brake pressure, and the steering position. And then from there, you can dive into the car. And this is where you can get pretty deep, because for the health side of it, you kind of have oil pressure and oil temperature and water temperature, those kind of sensors that monitor the health of the engine and maybe the performance of the engine a little bit. And then you can dive into all the vehicle performance things. So until I started to get into it, it was one that I never thought would be as valuable as it is. But like tire pressures, if you have a TPMS system on a race car, you can learn so much about the car and the tires really quick. Things like, another one that surprised me in how much I used it was brake temperatures, because you can choose your brake pads appropriately or maybe change your brake balance if you have a car that has that option, to really dive in there and see what the performance parameters of those things are and the operating windows and all that. Tire temperatures, that used to be something that was incredibly expensive. The cost of that has come way down to get some good data on it. And to see there where your tire temperatures are, like, just like you might probe them when you get back to the pits with the thermocouple that you stick in the tire. Well, with the infrared sensors, you can get that real time on the track to get even more data and dive in. You can do shock positions. And that one ends up in kind of two ways. Is sometimes you use it for the suspension and how you set up your shocks. So it would be how much rebound, how much compression, how fast they're moving, how much they're moving. But then sometimes it becomes, is the car at the right ride height? Like, is it hitting the track? Is it too far off the track? If it's an aero car and you have a big splitter, are you keeping that splitter at the right height off the racetrack? So you can dig into all those kind of things. And then a lot of the stuff I've done is because it's my passion. It's what's fun to me. So for some reason, I had joked with some people that I wanted to have the only 914 that had a pitot tube on it, like an airspeed sensor, like an airplane.
Right.
So a good friend in the Netherlands, Thijs, started to egg me on about it. Like, oh, did you get that done yet? Did you get that done? And I get these emails about it. So I figured out and I designed one and I made it. And it was pretty neat. I put it on my car, and what blew my mind, I spend a lot of time at Lime Rock, a lot of the tracks in the Northeast when I'm driving. And I rolled out and I was following, it was a ex NASCAR truck, like a Craftsman truck today. But it was an older one, so it was whatever generation. But I followed the guy a little bit. I passed him and went on with things. I started to review the data right after. And what was pretty neat is I had all these data things, displays like my brake pressure, my throttle position, the RPM, speed, all that on my video. And one of the things I put on there was the airspeed from the pitot tube. And I can still picture the exact spot when I'm watching this video. And it was the left-hander at Lime Rock. And I pull up behind the truck, and all of a sudden the airspeed went way down. And as I'm watching the video, at first I thought like, oh man, the sensor broke. Like that stinks. It was like your second lap. And then I realized it wasn't. I was in the air pocket behind him. I was in the draft.
In the draft, so it's not working the same.
Right. Well, the airspeed goes way down. So then all of a sudden I'm like, holy cow, right? So now this airspeed sensor that I kind of made because I wanted it and like a little bit of a joke, I was like, now you can see the draft. So a 914, the aerodynamics are about as good as a brick. But for all these other cars, like if you're in a Spec Miata or a Spec Racer Ford, where that draft becomes important, if you have that sensor, well, now it's sort of like driver performance, vehicle performance. It blends them a little bit because the driver can position the car right. And you can also figure out, like as a vehicle performance, where the best gap is, where you're in the draft, but you get enough air that the car doesn't overheat, kind of all those things where they come together. So a lot of the stuff I've done, it's just been because it's my passion. So I'll put something on my 914. I think I have close to 100 channels of data on it now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, everything. And then it's fun. So one of my philosophies in data is I share everything. So my data is all over the internet. My videos are all over the internet. People have used them in all different ways. So I try it and then I put it out there and let people see it for their own.
So let's try to get back. There's driver setups, right? There's driver data, and that can be as simple as this, like a Solo 2. So, because you specifically deal with AIM stuff, right?
Yes.
I don't know how familiar you are with like the Garmin or the Apex Pro or some of the phone-based stuff, but all those, they're non-expandable. Even the Solo 2 DL, it's limited, right? I think it can take a Smarty Cam now, but it didn't used to be able to. But those are limited and they're very driver focused, right? So is that the basic setup is for the driver would be like what, G meter, speed, acceleration, stuff like that?
Yeah, so the basics for a driver, and it's what got me so deep into this, and what started was the original Solo just had a GPS. And from that GPS, it gave you the speed, it gave you longitudinal G-forces, so the front and back. When you hit the brakes, you're thrown in the belts, that's longitudinal. Mm-hmm. It gave you the lateral G-forces, so when you turn, how hard you got pushed to the sides. And that was the big part of it, was that. So what you were able to do with it is sometimes you have to infer with it, right? So I always tell people, I'm like, for that $400, you get 85% of the knowledge that you get from a full system. So when you start to look at that, you can see, well, if the speed's going up, the driver's accelerating, right? And if it goes down, it's braking. And then certain things like if you don't have a brake, right? Coasting. So like we always say, and it's interesting. Like you bring up Apex Pro and the guys at Garmin. I know them. I know Andrew who started Apex Pro and the whole team there. We've done a bunch of presentations together. We always say it's a sawtooth. So when you're accelerating up, and you can imagine the peak. It's going up to the peak of the mountain, and when you hit the brakes, there should be no coasting. So it should be a really sharp point at the top and come down. In general, right? It always depends a little bit. And I always joke with people, I'm like, that's the Rocky Mountains, right? They've got peaks. It's like the Alps where they're sharp. If you're coasting, you get this big round tip because the car is accelerating. Then when you take your foot off the throttle, it's still accelerating, but much less. And then you hit the brakes and it goes back down. So just from the shape of the speed trace, I can tell you if you're coasting. And from the shape of the speed trace in the corners, I can tell you, were you carrying good speed in? Were you trail braking into this corner? Or were you, did you overslow and then accelerate the whole way out? So you can see a lot of that driver performance. And then if we look at the longitudinal G-forces, when we start to dig into that just a little bit on the surface, that trace, when we look at the negative G-forces, the braking part, it almost matches your brake pressure exactly, because the more brake pressure you hit, right, the car slows down and it builds those G-forces. So there's certain parts of that longitudinal G-force trace that are not as clear. So depending on the car, if you're at full throttle doing, say, 120 miles an hour and you just completely take your foot off the gas, the car might decelerate at 0.2 Gs. It might decelerate at 0.3 or 0.1. So I can't always tell you exactly how much, if you hit the brakes or you just coasted a little bit, but I can tell you that's not a spot you should have been doing that. You should have still been on the throttle. So you get so much out of that. And then we can look at your brake performance and see, did you hit the brakes hard and fast and then release really slong and trail that brake release into the corner? Did you hit them a little bit and then increase your brake force a lot, kind of the backwards of the normal performance driving, and then release them quick? And, like kind of really upset the car. Did you have a big plateau? Like you hit them hard and you just held them for a long time? One of the neat things, it just reminds me of all the brake traces, is Dion von Mulkey, who is a great racing driver on his own and has started doing a ton of coaching through his service, Blaze, recently wrote a book. And I think one of the coolest things about it was the title, Send It. And in it, he has a whole section on braking, and he broke the idea of braking down into 5 different ways and kind of 5 different brake traces that can be appropriate, because what works in one corner is not always right in the next one. So with just the GPS, though, you can start to evaluate all that. And then where it gets a little bit harder is your acceleration on it. So we can see those G-forces start to go positive where the car is accelerating.
Right.
But there's a range of throttle positions that can make it accelerate. So that one's a little more difficult to say, like, were you 100% throttle or 50, right? But we can see it some. We know if you're speeding up or slowing down. And then with any of the systems, is one of the neat ways to look at it is what's your consistency. So if you can look at 5 laps, you're going to see you didn't do it the same every time. And then you can dig in and go, okay, why wasn't this the same? Like, what did I do different? Maybe it's how much I hit the gas. Maybe it's how I released the brake and the G-force has changed. And then many times it's in the steering wheel. Did I turn in earlier? Did I turn in later? Did I turn in as fast? Did I add more steering as I got down to the apex? Did I release the wheel the same? Kind of all those things. And with the changes in GPS, it used to be this math channel. So you'd have to do calculations to try to figure out the radius that you drove.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like in the AIM software, it's included in every time you download data, you get a GPS radius. So it tells you the actual radius you drove. And then you can look at that and say, well, was this apex early or late or right in the middle? So you get all this information put out for you that then you can sift through and try to decide what was important in every spot. And it's always interesting. It's like you dig in and you can go super, super deep into almost like foot by foot of how you hit the brake, how you were releasing it, how smooth it was, where you picked up the throttle, how hard you picked it up, how fast you picked up, when you turned the wheel. And all these things play into the only answer that counts at the end of the day, if you're trying to get lap time, is speed. Because the length of the track doesn't change. So the only way to get a lower lap time is to go faster, is to raise that average somehow. So it kind of always plays back to that speed trace. And then everything you're doing with your inputs, whether it's the throttle, the brake, or the steering, affects how fast you can go. And that's the heart of driver performance, is trying to figure out what's the right way to mix those inputs and do it the best.
Okay. So a lot of the folks that listen drive older clapped out cars. And I'm sure your 914 didn't come with ABS traction control module that had or has a steering trace already in it, or a sensor already in it. So I'm assuming they have sensors that you retrofit to your steering column. That would be the easiest, I would assume. But
yeah, so my steering sensor. So when you start with it, when you just have G-forces, you can use those G-forces to get a pretty good idea how you turn the wheel, because the G-force are driven by your inputs, right? So if the lateral G-force increases pretty quick, you turn the wheel pretty quick, and the car responded pretty well. So you get a lot of that data, and then that's where I started with my car, was just with the plain Solo, no camera, no anything, just the $400 Solo. And then now it's loaded up, and there is a steering sensor on it. Mm-hmm. And there's a number of ways you can do them. One of the easiest is called a string pot. And a string pot, I always tell people, it's like an electronic tape measure. It's a little reel, just like a tape measure. And it's got a string that comes out, and you attach the string to the steering column, and when you turn it, it pulls it out or it lets it in, and then you measure that.
That's what my factory one is, I'm pretty sure.
Depending on the car, sometimes the factory ones are a gear. The really fancy ones are a rotary sensor on the bottom of the steering rack. But yeah, it could just be a plain string pot on it as well.
So I have a 2007 Honda Civic. And I know it's that string setup. It's actually kind of like a coil spring-ish setup, because when I was ripping everything out, it shot across the cabin because I ripped it out, literally. I was like, I don't need
Was
this.
it better, or was it scarier or less than when you pulled apart the seatbelt buckle or the seatbelt mechanism?
Oh, no. The scariest part was trying to figure out the order of operations to take out. It's a coupe, so it's kind of a smaller car. But this thing has so many airbags. So to take out the airbag module in what order, right?
Yeah.
I was like, so, I mean, luckily I had the manuals and stuff, and was like, okay, flipping through, and it wasn't me because I'm colorblind. So looking at wires, I just know the yellow connectors are all airbag stuff. So my buddy Jason went through and said, okay, it's depowered, no battery in the car. They all of them have capacitors to discharge in case of a battery failure in an accident. And so we have to take the brain out first. So that's what we did. So
in my mind, this is a podcast, right? So I get to make my own pictures of what I'm imagining.
Yes.
I'm imagining like when it's in the movies and they're trying to disarm the bomb and they're like, do you cut the red wire or the black wire? I don't know which one. Always the red, right? And your buddy's having to cut the red wire.
Yeah. So that's essentially what was happening. And I was like, I'll be in the car. You just tell me which connector I'm taking off first. And then, so I did it and I was like, yes, nothing happened. And he goes, we're not done yet. But we had to take a lot of nannies off the car, which is fine, whatever. But so I'll tell you where I am in my journey. So I initially had a regular Solo. And my biggest complaint with the regular Solo was the battery died all the time. I could not keep it charged. And I don't know. I never explored a hardwired kit. I probably should have. So every day I was charging it. The other thing is I was pairing it to a GoPro, and I absolutely hate my GoPros, and they no longer exist. Most of them are probably, 50 yards out into the woods by my garage somewhere. Because they just stop. They do weird things. Like they'll record one session and then the next session they were in 7 burst picture mode and nothing changed. Right. So, so I went, the other thing is I live in an open trailer. Like we put a tent on the open trailer, cars on the open trailer, whatever. We tow down with the truck, and it's just, there's just not enough room for me to take the computer. So I was coming home and looking at my data and making strides and going back, but we usually go to one track and then another track and maybe back to the other track. And so it would be 2 events probably before I would get to apply the data that I got to review. And it just wasn't enough. And then my region deployed a rule that said you have to have a operating camera in your car. So long story short, the simple answer was to get the Garmin. I just pull the tablet out and review stuff. Now, is it as powerful as if I downloaded my AIM data? I can say sort of. There's people who shortchange it a lot, but they're not looking at all the available data. They're just looking at speed, basically. And it has the camera. It's been pretty darn reliable for me. It didn't like it when I got tagged by the Miata, but it basically cut the video off where I got hit. So I didn't like that jolt, but I mean, whatever. But it's been really reliable. So that's what I run. But I'm dialing myself in as a driver, and I'm not ignoring the car, but the car, I'm making adjustments to the car to make it feel better for me, how I think I want it to feel. And we're sort of progressing. I think I have it better, and I always review my data from the Garmin, but now I think I want to collect car data, and I know like real car data. So I know the Garmin will do that, and that's a big separation line, right? It's the Solo 2 DL. Will that collect the OBD2 port information?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and it's very dependent on the car, and it's one where there's a lot, like somehow almost all of the AIM Race Studio 3 software is stuck in my head. Like I can talk you through all the menus and what buttons to click. But like the ECU connections, for some reason, there's so many of them that they support. I don't remember them all. So 2006 is around the years of when the complexity of cars was still changing. Right. So like a 2006 GM product can be hard to get good car data, but a 2006 BMW has tons. And I don't know where the Honda falls
Yes.
in. And
I can tell you where it falls, but and I do have a bunch of 8th, 9th gen listeners that, at least Civic wise,
Yep.
2006 and 2007, which my car falls in, are the transition years to the full OBD2. So you have OBD2, was it A or whatever, and then you have OBD2
okay.
B, and there is a transition time where we got, I don't know, half of what was required. The EPA drove everything for 2008. 2008 was the deadline. So if you have a 2008 and greater Honda, if you plug in, you're going to have everything. Whereas the 6 and 7 car doesn't have everything. There's stuff, right? Water temp, and oil pressure, I think, are the only things that it has. So if you want your oil temperature, you're not going to get that feed. But, you know, but what I'm saying is the Solo 2 DL will get you closer than the Garmin will get you. As far as...
Yeah, and with this... Well, so if I take a step back, my first thought, like as I hear your kind of progression and what you like and what you don't, is this is where I love selling people stuff. I love helping people with AIM stuff. If you're going to buy it and not use it, that Garmin's more powerful for you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to use it every time. And I'd say, yeah, there's car performance, but the driver's always a big variable. The driver can always change what they're doing and try to get more and improve and do better. So before you go to the car data, if you get all this and you're not going to use it, keep the Garmin, use something. But your story is a really familiar one, that you get the hunger, you get the little bits of data and you improve a lot with it. And then you're like, well, geez, this would be a little better if I knew my actual throttle position, if I knew the steering position. Right. And then, so then people move to something like a Solo 2 DL, the MXM, one of the loggers, because with the Solo 2 DL, we can tie into the car and get whatever that vehicle will give us. And sometimes it's a lot and sometimes it's a little bit. And then with that product now, we can add an expansion to it and take in 4 analog channels. So even if you get nothing from the car, we can hook it up to the RPM, and then we can put in a throttle position, a brake pressure, and a steering position sensor and have all that driver data and know exactly what you're doing. When you want to start getting really deep into the car performance, usually that's where I try to have a conversation with the person. I say like, okay, well, what's your support network? And then what are your resources? Like if I sell you a full setup and put shock sensors and linear sensors in all your shocks, right? And we go through everything, but you're in a class that you're not allowed to change your shocks. Like that could have been wasted money, or maybe you don't have the resources to do anything about it. So the same thing can go like the tire temperature sensors are really cool. So on my 914, I have them. I get 3 spots across the tire. So it's just like if I tested my tires on pit road. And when I look at the data, my front suspension's McPherson strut, the same as your Civic, really easy to change, right? Like you can play with that alignment set up at the racetrack. Right. The rear on mine takes some shims. It's a little more work. And I was thinking about doing some simulation, like a chassis simulation and forces and stuff. And the person who wrote the software, Danny Nolan, wasn't familiar with it. So I sent him a picture. And he's Australian, and he has the best answers to things. And he goes, oh, my goodness, it looks like somebody had 5 minutes on Friday afternoon, and they said, this is good enough. Right? And I'm like, well, Danny, that's my car. And he's like, for you to fix anything, you have to basically cut that all out and change it. So if you look at my data, the inside tire, all the temperatures go opposite because it goes into droop so much and the temperatures go bad. Mm-hmm. but I can't do anything about them. So like now all I have is a problem that I've identified it. I know exactly what the problem is, but I can't fix it.
In the rear, you can't, but in the front, you can
Correct.
still make your adjustments knowing you're throwing away the rear data. It's just on your car because of the way it's designed. Thanks, Porsche, right? But
right. But sometimes it's a class rule, right? Like if you but then what was interesting, Roger, who works for AIM, he's a national training manager, and a lot of his experiences came from crew chiefing for his son, who won a Spec Miata championship. And Spec Miata, you can't change the shocks; it's a set thing and everything. Well, what they found was there was an optimum ride height, so they repurposed some GM ride height sensors. Like then it was for air suspension. Today you find them a lot of times for the active headlight stuff. Right. So he used those, and then they knew if the car was too low or too high. So a very crude measurement system to get them in the window to get the suspension geometry right. So then you're like, yeah, everybody wondered what they were doing and thought they were cheating with the shocks when really they were just trying to get the height right. So the vehicle performance stuff like that can really start to play in. One of the ones I did just to see things is I put a load cell on my sway bar on one of the drop links. Because I wanted to have load cell data to learn to implement them and to be able to share that data with people if it was something they were thinking they wanted to do. And that's been pretty neat because I was forced to try to calculate the forces and then use that to kind of figure out how much force, how much does it play in. And then ultimately it turned into a little bit of a disappointment for a reason I didn't see coming. And it made sense once I thought about it is, I have it on the left front sway bar drop link, and it's a short rod. You send it out. If you don't know what a strain gauge is or like a load cell is, basically it's a circuit board on this super thin, flexible piece of material, and they glue it and bond it to the part, and then they calibrate it so they know this microscopic movement in the metal equates to this much force. Does that kind of make sense?
It makes sense to me, but I know what they are.
Okay. So it's like the same idea as how the scale in your bathroom works when it puts out the numbers, but they can do that on all different parts. And then I can record that number in the data. So I did it and I started to look at the data and I realized it was basically a steering trace.
Oh, your load data on that cell mirrored your steering trace.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right. So I spent a whole bunch of money to do it. And then I was like, But then it makes total sense, right? Because the car doesn't start to roll until you turn the steering wheel. And it made sense. So it was a neat experiment. I've learned a bunch using it and how to implement it better and some tricks in that part. But it was like, and part of the reason I picked it, it's a very easy part to adapt these load cells to. If I did it again, I probably would have picked something different, but it was certainly a good learning experience.
Yeah, I would have thought there would have been some delay and then some stretch that would like spread the definition of your steering trace in that cell, but I don't know.
Yeah. I only have it on one side. One of the things I really want to do is put a position sensor on both sides of the sway bar and find out how much it twists.
Okay.
Or I guess I could go the other way, take it out of the car and use it with a scale and get the same number on it.
You could do that. That might be easier or not. It just depends. You have lots of sensors, I'm sure. So either way would work.
I do. And then, so like when you talk about the advanced stuff is then sometimes too, I say, what's a level, what do you want to accomplish? Like when you drive your car, you say you want to get deeper into the car performance. Like, where do you think your car is letting you down, or what could you improve?
So right now we are, the car was obnoxiously pushy. It's a front wheel drive McPherson truck car, and everyone and their brother says to go a certain direction with your spring rates. And I was that way, and it was just still pushy. It was hard to drive fast. Hard. In the fast stuff, it seemed okay, but it was so easy to drive in the fast stuff. The faster you went, the more it wanted to push at speed. So when you overdrove a corner, the fast corners, it wanted to just send you off the track. You could not finish the little bit at the end. You know, you come off and you hit the rumble strips on the outside. It wanted to keep going, you know, but it was completely content on entry, mid corner, all that. But right at the end, it just wanted to push out. And in the slow stuff, it was miserable. Guys were running me down in the slow stuff. So I took a swing the opposite direction of everybody else, and it seems like it hit, but I don't know why. So I want shock sensors. I want I'm obnoxiously trying to collect my tire temperatures, and if I could do it without getting out of the car, I would be so much happier, I think.
That's why I got him first.
Yeah, then we need to talk.
Because I was at the... That's why. So it's kind of funny is I got frustrated because I'm like, I can't get out of the car and like, you know, unbelt, jump over the cage, get the, like, and then I have to try to remember to put the tire temp gauge like on the pit wall before I go out. Like, you know, you never remember all these things.
Yeah. Your sheet has to be there. Finally, everything has to be there.
Right. Or you're trying to recruit someone and you're, you know, it's a predominantly, counterclockwise track. So you're like start on the right side and then they start on like the left rear or something. Right. And then you're mad about that and they're trying to help you and it's not their fault. Yeah. So then I was like, I think I have a technology problem. Like these sensors have come to a price point that are affordable enough. I'll just put the sensors on the car and not have to ask anyone. And then you have this awesome data real time on the racetrack to get it. You always have it.
AIM read it.
Yeah. So you can do it. There's so many neat ways to do it. And as an aside, like it's not a secret because I tell everybody, but one of the sensors a lot of people won't put on that I think is like the best value is I take $100 tire temp sensor and shoot it at the racetrack because the track temp has so much influence on how much grip you get.
Yes, absolutely.
So how often do you remember to record it?
Almost never. Usually, okay, so I'll tell you because I have a pre-sheet and the top half is the pre-run sheet and the bottom half is a post-run sheet. And the track temperature is actually on the pre-side of the sheet because I can shoot it basically like in the paddock. And then I roll out. So, but I know the paddock isn't always the same temperature as the track.
Right.
It can be close, usually close, but not always.
Yeah. But then you go to like Road America and especially if it's damp at all in the morning and there's a little bit of a breeze, out by the kink is way colder because of all the trees. Like it'll be 20 degrees different sometimes.
Yeah, I could see that. And that's not the only corner. I mean, Oak Tree used to be that way before the tree fell, you know? Yeah. So, and depending on the time of day, it gets that way, exiting turn 1 at VIR because the trees shade that section of the track. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's definitely spots like that. So it's not always consistent, and it would probably be good to do that, and know it everywhere.
Yeah. And that's why I like, so the tire temperatures that's why I got into those and the track temp. And then the same thing for tire pressures, because I was always trying to get the gauge and do it. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute, I can put it on. And then the side benefit of doing things like tire pressures is really quickly you learn, you roll out at a pressure. Well, how long does it take for the tires to come all the way up to pressure? And then if you have a yellow flag, how quick do they lose pressure? Yeah. And then what's the best way in your car to actually build pressure again? Is it swerving? Is it braking? Is it trying to build brake heat? All these different things are like, what works best for your car?
Yeah. And I mean, some of the big focus for me, the pushiness had me destroying tires. I would buy a fresh set of tires and they were basically done in a weekend plus some practice on the next event, where I know guys were heat cycling them out. I was at the time I was running the same size as the Spec 3 BMW racers, and they were like, oh, we get 15, 16 heat cycles. I can't run my tire that long. It'll cord in 5 or 6 heat cycles. So
there's an interesting one. So when people dig into data, I haven't seen a lot of tires that are the same for 15 heat cycles.
Well, yeah, so that's the other thing. Yeah. Well, now I'm getting better.
It's like a motor oil argument. Well, it's like a motor oil argument. People say they're good to like cord, and when you start to dig in the data and you compare those G-forces, you're like, this is a slow but steady drop off. And if you really dig into the data, there's a really great engineer named Jorge Segers, wrote a great book, and he's got all these ways to break down grip and define it. Is it cornering grip? Is it braking grip? And he calls them grip factors. And when you dig into that data, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, this grip factor changed from 1.5 G's when I cornered down to 1.3. So then it really starts to change the performance of the car. And I think what happens is the driver starts to calibrate themselves to that lower level of grip. So now it starts to influence the driver performance because your sensation of what the limit is now off 10%. So it's a hard thing. Like they're all interconnected and they all start to play together. And you should send me some of your data. I'd love to look at it because one of the things that can influence how the car responds to everything is the driver inputs, right? So as you start to make the car a lot stiffer, it changes the how fast you can apply throttle and how fast you can apply brake pressure. And the same thing, the one I think a lot of people forget about is we talk about hitting the gas faster, slower, and the same thing with the brakes, but your steering is, did you turn in fast? Did you turn in slow? Did you turn in progressive? Did you turn in a lot and then go a little bit more? Did you crank a little bit more wheeling at the apex? Rob Wilson, who trains all the F1 driver, always talks about introducing the idea of turning to the tire before you ask it to turn. So there's all these things in there that you can influence how the car actually performed. And the same thing, like when your car pushes off the corner really bad, is it a weight transfer issue? But that's when you need the shock sensors to say, is the rear really squatting down and it's unloading the front, and that's why you have no grip?
Yeah. So I didn't go stiffer. Big surprise. Everybody goes to these obnoxious 1,700 pound plus rear springs in the car. I went the opposite direction, and it seemed to help. Like the car was actually loading on the bar. But one of the big drivers for me is I've hit a plateau as a wheelman. My Garmin Catalyst for the last year and a half, and I've had the car for 2 years. So the last year and a half has my consistency percentage at like 0.02 or 3%. I mean, that's my deviation percent. Yeah, it's really, really tight. I mean, I see them in the Garmin Catalyst groups and they're like 3, 4, 5%. And I'm like, that must be terrible because, you know, and I understand they're in school groups mostly and things like that. But in a race group, I'm well under 1%. I think my worst race was 0.3% last year.
Wow. And I think from your descriptions, I think one of the things that you would really like about having the next level of vehicle performance, so when you put those shock sensors on, is as you change the springs, if you change the shocks, if you change your ride heights and everything, is I always found it helped me calibrate what I feel.
Okay.
So when I put stiffer springs in, I go, geez, the car isn't. I made a big spring adjustment on the front of my car. It made it way stiffer, and then all of a sudden I'm like, geez, the car doesn't move, like it's bound up. It doesn't compress when I hit the brakes. And then when you look at the data, you're like, no, it moves an inch, not 4 inches. And it helps you recalibrate what you're doing, or you change a shock setting and you add more rebound or compression. And then you go drive it and you come in and you felt something, but now you can look at that graph and see what it looked like to see what you really did. And I find it really helps drivers calibrate in that way.
Okay.
But it also means, like, in your case, you would have to be prepared to have some springs to throw at it. And that can be an expensive proposition because all of a sudden, you know if your springs are $200 a piece and you're going to buy 4 sets, right? That's like $1,600. Then you got to change them, set your ride heights, the alignment, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So it's always that playoff.
It's at least on the end that I'm working on right now. I think it's $150 a set.
Okay.
So not obnoxious, not cheap. It's not like $60 or $80, right? But $150 a set.
Okay.
And yeah. And it's.
Did you try spring rubbers?
Not yet. So I need to get the car measured out where it's sitting. That's one of my goals, to get it all measured out. Because I'm slammed. This car is tucking rim in the back. So, but it seems to like it. So I want to get all the measurements of where it is. So when I make changes, I can leave that alone, and keep it all the ride heights exactly where it needs to be and all that stuff. So,
right.
Yeah. But so the other challenge for me is Race Studio.
Yeah.
Because I spend a lot of time looking at YouTube videos just for my solo. So I know I want to expand my data. I am a data nerd by day. I want to expand my data. I know it costs money to expand data, but whatever. It's not like I don't spend enough on the car. But Race Studio, I guess once you figure it out, it must be easy. But for a novice, they didn't make it very nice for a novice.
Now, which version are you using? Are you using Race Studio 2 or 3?
I think I'm on 2.
So the new devices use 3, which I think is... When it came out, I used it kind of before a lot of people even knew it was being developed. And at first I hated it. And I had to stop for a minute and say, okay, why do you hate this? Do you hate it because it's different, or do you hate it because it's bad? And I realized I hate it because it was different, because I used to have Race Studio 2 that memorized. Race Studio 3, in my opinion, is a quantum jump from where it is. And there are things that look the same and give you the same sense of the program, but I think the usability is a lot better. And the core of how it's written is different in how it interacts with the data. But your point is really valid. So one of the things I did late last year is put a sim in, and now my 11-year-old son and I will drive on it, and then he loves to compare data, right? Because work with dad and do these things. And I have to teach an 11-year-old how to use Ray Studio 3. Right. And then it was, to me, what helped me was, like I said, I've got the software almost memorized just from using it all the time and familiarity. And then you open it and you realize that it is this involved, specialized software package that can go deep into suspension frequency analysis that you have to be an engineer to really dig into, or it can give you video with a speed trace to it, right? Like it can be either end of this, and you have to be able to try to get that information over to someone. So I think they've done a much better job that, like, you can just now, if you have a SmartyCam HD or a SmartyCam 3, you can import just your video and have like a track map, the video, and your speed trace and stuff with it. You can create what they call them profiles. So you can have like a pre-planned setup. So every time you look at your data, it looks the same, which is a big help for a lot of people. Like, you can tell me what's important to you. I can help you set your screens up that way. And then every time you look at your data, you can click a button and have it.
Okay. I mean, that would be appreciated. But
yeah. But I understand people's challenges with it, because anytime you dig into one of these software packages, whether it's AIM or Motec or Bosch or Cosworth or Magneti Marelli, it's like the first time you opened up Excel and you had to work with a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And you had no idea what to do, right? Like, you think back, what you thought was advanced then, now is, like the easiest thing you do. So it's sort of the same. Like, there is a learning curve to it. And that's where I think the data you're going to use is the most important. So to me, in the big picture, I think AIM provides the best value in the capabilities of the system. The software, in my opinion, is really great. You can get really deep into it, but it does take a little bit of work to learn. But then you have an app like Harry's Lap Timer that does it all for you, with a Garmin that takes all that analysis and it builds it into the package, and you get somebody else's idea and algorithm of what to do, but it gives it to you. It just says, go faster here, go slower here, turn in later, whatever it is. But it's super easy and it's user friendly. And then I think, the Apex Pro is kind of in the middle, that it has some OBD2 connection for some cars. It's got the lights on it, so real time you get something. It's got a little bit of analysis in the app. Like, it's kind of that happy medium. And then you have the AIM. And then from there you can get, people start doing stuff in MATLAB and building analysis packages, and, all the way to the top level teams doing McLaren get to do anything they want. And then they have deep AI systems and big data stuff and everything else that goes really crazy with it.
So assume somebody's got a Solo.
Yep.
Or Solo 2 DL. I guess with this, it's a little cheater with the Solo 2 DL, because I think I know the answer, but they want to upgrade. Okay. So I think with a Solo 2 DL, they can do the expansion ports, right? They can go up to 4 ports, analog ports, right?
So I always approach this different.
Okay.
So I look at it and I think back to when I got into stuff, when I started doing this, and I went like, how deep do I want to get in this? Like, is this something I really enjoy and I want to get into? Or is this something that I feel like I should do, or I want these specific things? And then I build a system around that. So when I did my car, I knew there was no stopping. So I built a system around being able to get all these channels. What you're describing to me, you want that capability, because I think over a period of time, you're going to end there. So we could give you the basics with the Solo 2 DL, and we can add those 4 channels to it, those 4 extra sensors.
Yeah.
But you're going to outgrow it.
I'm talking
quick.
In general. I know I'm probably going to run redundant, so I'm going to have the Garmin and the video
Mhm.
going, probably just because it's easier
Yep.
for me to pull the tablet out and throw it at the compliance director if something happens, right?
And you already own
I
it,
already
right?
own
Like,
it.
why
So,
not?
And so I know my next step is a dash.
Yep.
Which dash? I don't know exactly, but I know
Mhm.
I want more things than out of the package, right? I definitely want to put back a steering trace, like the steering column.
Yep.
I definitely
Definitely.
want that back in there. If my life could be easier with the infrared and tire pressure setup, that's got to be in there, like 100%.
Yep.
And then, I mean, just because I feel like I'm out on an island with this newer car that I want to do the
Mhm.
shocks too. So, I mean, I know all that stuff. All
Yep.
I hear is dollar signs when I say these things, but it's a progressive build, right? As long as you get the right base, which would be whatever dash logger you wanted, that could
Yep.
eventually hold the capacity of what you think you need. Then you just start there and you go, okay, this year I'm going to add this, or this year I'm going to add this in this,
Exactly.
and expand it that way. I get it.
Yep.
That's definitely everyone and their brothers like, Con, buy a dash, and I'm like, I don't want to spend that money right now. I mean, to the point where I found a place out of Australia that's selling like really good sensors, and this little,
Yep.
like, basically Raspberry Pi based gauge face, and
Yep.
it's like, for all of it, it's like $280. I was like, that's the cheapest analog setup I'm gonna get for, I mean, everything: intake air temperature, transmission fluid temperature, anything I can plug into it for $280.
But here's the thing. You have to watch it. Like, when you buy an AIM system, you get amazing hardware. Like, so AIM is out of Milan, Italy. They design everything there.
Right.
They build it all there. They machine the housings. They're beautiful aluminum housings. They're anodized. It's all made in Milan.
Okay.
And comes here. It's super high quality. I've got customers that are in the semiconductor business. They look in at the parts, and like, the quality of it's great. But more than that, you're buying the software, because you can have that data, but like, lambda sensors, right? Oxygen, air, fuel. That's always when everyone goes, I want the gauge. I'm like, what are you going to do with the gauge? Are you telling me, like, when you're going through the uphill S's at VIR, you have the ability to look down and go like, oh, the engine's running a little lean?
Yeah, no, you don't have.
Like,
This thing has recall.
none. That's pretty good. But see, like, with the AIM, I can then tell you, like, we can pull it up and I can say, this is what the lambda was at this point on track, with this fuel pressure, with this air temp, with this throttle position. And oh, by the way, it was actually lean because you lifted out of the throttle and it spikes lean. That's why you saw that lean number.
I know, but it's a tenth the price.
It is
of
absolutely.
So, and this is just me trying to cover a base for the time being, right? I know the answers to get a dash, but that was not in the cards this year. So,
well, so the parts where I look at it then is, I am thrifty at heart, without a doubt, right? Like, I am a New England Yankee to try not to spend when I don't have to. And then one of the things I've had to teach myself is to step back and go, okay, what's the big picture, and what's the most kind of efficient way to get to the end here? So if that system takes a sensor that you can then reapply and put into a dash later, well, then maybe it is a good buy. If it's $280 that's just going to be wasted and has no resale or anything else, then maybe it's not a good choice.
We'll see.
Right? Did you already buy it?
It's already here. I'm probably installing it tomorrow. So it's yeah, I'm waiting.
Then we'll do this again in a year and see how it goes.
Yeah, well, in a year we'll probably do this in person, and I'll drag my car up to you and be like, "I'm colorblind. I'm not wiring squat. How do you put this aim thing in here?" But
so here's one of the things that you would really dig with the AIM system. So it's a little bit more complex, but like it's a red and a black wire for the power and ground,
okay.
right? And then if you have a car that takes ECU information, it's a blue and a white wire for your CAN high and
Okay.
low. And your AIM sensors all plug in. Like it has a molded connector that only goes together one way. It's like plugging in extension cords.
Yep. Okay.
The hardest part is installing the actual sensor, so figuring out where to put that oil pressure sensor and then running the cables around the car.
Oh, see, then I'm just prototyping where I'm going to run everything and how to plug it all in.
There you go.
So.
And really, you're fishing the leads, right? So you can tape them together
Yeah,
and
just pull it the other way. Yeah, it's fine.
It's pre-work.
Yeah. And I might get to see something in the meantime.
Right. So. And, while I say it's not the best one, like I'm still a proponent. If your option is nothing or do that, then I'm like, do it. You're going to learn something and you're going to be able to apply that knowledge to the car and to your next system.
Okay. So we're running a little late, but I do want to talk about, and maybe we'll do a short one and later on, but what are some data best practices, let's say for newish drivers, up, and then maybe some tips for experienced drivers who have the data but may not be using it. I know number one is use it.
I would always. That's the biggest one. You wouldn't believe how many people you talk to, and I say, "Oh, how'd your data look this morning?" "Oh, I didn't turn it on." "What do you mean you didn't turn it on?" "Well, I was just going out to warm up." Like, always collect data because you never know the conditions. You might not be like my best lap ever at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. I wasn't trying. I went out to scrub a set of tires. And like by far my best lap.
Okay.
So always use your data. Like always record it. No matter what data system you have, because it might record the time that you get you spot an engine problem and you save yourself a motor, or you might be able to try to replicate your best performance, right? So always collect your data. The other one is always review your data before you go back out and have a plan with it. So I always liken it, like car racing is a little bit different because we take people and we say, go faster, try harder, go faster, do things, but we don't break any of those skills down. So when you review your data between every session, you can identify something you want to work on and then pick one or two things and try to do those. So maybe it's something as simple as you looked at your video and you need to use the whole track, like exit the whole way or get closer to the apex. And then I work with a lot of drivers. Sometimes it's like churro brake an extra 10 feet or delay the throttle pickup 10 feet, right? Like we're working in these little car lengths at the hardest part of the corner. But have a plan, like review your data, have a plan, drive with a purpose.
Yeah. And that you're right. Always. Even when I usually make the caveat that scrubbing your tires, you probably don't need to run 10/10ths, but shakedown, whatever morning practice it's practice. If you're not trying in practice, you're not going to try as hard all the other times.
Yeah, 100%. And I was just thinking, when you talk about scrubbing your tires, you'll actually laugh. One of the coolest videos I saw was somebody scrubbing tires.
Oh, what would they do?
It was, and I might get myself in trouble for this, but I'll say his name and everything anyways, is I'm really fortunate I get to work with a driver, Thomas Merrill, who is just outstanding, like an outstanding coach, an outstanding driver, outstanding person. And it was at Lime Rock, and he came in with not much time left in the session. They threw a set of brand new scrubs on it, and he went out to warm him up and put down a lap. And in one lap, a mile and a third at Lime Rock, he heated him up and put a car in pole position.
Oh, wow.
Or no, it wasn't that. Like, it was a practice before. It was like pre-qualifying, but laid down the fast lap. And just the way he worked the tires, worked the wheel, worked the brakes, did the whole thing. I saved it. I have it on my computer as this is how to warm up tires.
Apparently.
And it was a tire session. Like, yeah, it's wild because you get the strata of driver, right? Like, I'm a 44-year-old dad of two that loves going to the racetrack and driving. Right. Roger Penske, even when I was at the Detroit Grand Prix, he didn't call me. Like, everybody told me that he was pretty busy and his people probably just missed calling my people. But it's been like 6 months, so maybe he lost my number because it hasn't changed. But these people call Thomas to drive. So I'm like, I get to watch his skill set and then try to implement it.
Yeah.
So, pretty lucky, but it's like those little things. So I'm like, geez, when I get a set of tires, I want to scrub them, or I want to, sometimes one of the skills you want to practice is going fast, right? That's like a Ross Bentley phrase. So I see this and I'm like, well, geez, there's one of the keys to going fast is how you scrub the tires in and do that. So sometimes I go out and that's the skill I practice. Or when I go out and I do my first laps, I'll use the whole track and I'll bump every rumble strip to get an idea where the edge of the car is and kind of build my spatial awareness and my awareness of using everything. And then you'll find yourself 10 laps into the session and you're like, geez, I just left 5 feet on my exit. Like, I got to do better there. And then you can do it. Or it's one of the ones when I learn a new track, it's probably a good and a bad. I'll go out and I'll go and I'll trail brake every corner for a whole session. Like, trail brake the dickens out of it, like as deep as I can, just to practice trail braking. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this isn't the corner for that, right? I need a different tool in this corner. And you stop doing that. But then when you get to the corner where you want it and you're not using it enough, you're aware of it. It like kind of builds that awareness and helps you do better. And I think that's where the data review every session builds up. Like, you see all these things and you're able to pull those driver tools out quicker and recognize when you're not using them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the worst thing that I ever did was have to review my data after an event, not after a session. So
really hard, right? Because then you have to, then what else do you do? Well, what do you love, right? Instant gratification and that instant feedback. So when you do it well, you want to know. And when, this is something we all love and we're trying to do better at. So when you don't do it well, you want to improve it.
Yeah, well.
So you need that feedback loop right away.
So the only feedback I was getting at the time, I had my Solo 2. So I got the flashing lights that told me green is good, right? And then I had the lap timer either tell me I was successful or not successful, basically, right? But in the grand scheme of things, that's the most expensive lap timer that you're going to own. So to own one and not actually use the data is just, you should have Harry's lap timer up there,
Well, so here's two tricks that I like to use with it is, I use the plus or minus either best or reference lap all the time, because then no matter my driving, the day, the weather conditions, I can go into a corner, and if it says I'm minus 1 second on the lap and I come out of the corner minus 1.1, I did it a tenth better. If it reads minus 0.9, I lost a tenth. I think that has a lot of value because I can build my awareness, my sense of this is the best way through this corner. But the second part of it is where I found that really, really helpful is if you over bake an entry, right? You come in a little too hot. you can instantly see how quick you caught the car and how much time it cost you. And then all of a sudden you're like, that wasn't a very big slide and it cost me 3/10. And now you're not going to make that same mistake. And then you make a 2/10 slide and then you make a 1/10 slide, right? And the same thing on the exit. Like you move your apex a little bit and you see that reference, the delta there changed a little bit, better or worse. And you're like, okay, that was better or worse. I think I can do this, right? And you have that instant feedback through the lights or through the number. So I find that for me to be really helpful. But yeah, like whatever works for you, use that to review and do it. The second one is there's an app called LapSnap, LAPSNAP. And it will, I think you get one free session and then you have to pay for it. But that lets you download your aim data and do it on your phone or a tablet, iPad, iPhone, whatever it is.
Yeah, that would be convenient.
And you get that basic analysis on some device that you already have with you. If you're not comfortable with the computer, it's on a device you're comfortable with. It's a neat app.
Okay. That would be helpful because I think there's a lot of folks that are just like, I don't want to drag my whole laptop. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. So if there is an interface that says, hey, we'll take your aim data and sort of synthesize it for you, that would be pretty helpful for folks. So
yeah.
Awesome. Matt, what services do you offer outside of selling aim stuff at trailbreak.com?
The big one is the aim service or the aim sales and the support there of it. So, I don't like my goal is if somebody gets something from me and they have a problem, they can't figure it out. I want them to be in touch. I want them to email me or call me. And then I can help them use that device to the most because they're expensive. It's not a small purchase for most people. So I try to help them get the most out of it and get to a point they can use it to improve their driving. So I think I can service it and help people a lot more. I try to teach everybody how to use it. I've done, I don't know how many webinars with AIM that are on YouTube. And helped with them. There's some really great resources there, in-person trainings with different car clubs and everything, and helping out different regions and chapters with systems. So I've done all those things. I travel some for it as well. So I'm actually off to Ohio next week and then Sebring the week after. I don't know my schedule after that, but I think we are 5 weeks into the year and I've already flown 12,000 miles this year.
Wow. Okay.
So
I'm assuming you were at Daytona.
Yeah, keeping busy. No, I've been down to Sebring a couple times. I was over to a show and some meetings in the UK. A car setup deal out in Ohio, and then down to Sebring for the races. I don't know what's after that. I'm sure it'll keep changing.
Oh, yeah.
And then sales and support, the phone and everything else, emails.
Awesome.
So staying busy.
I appreciate you coming on the show, man. I definitely want to touch on or dig deeper into Race Studio. So I'll be in touch because I think folks need to know more stuff. They need to be able to coach themselves a little bit, or at least provide their virtual coaches better options. So off the break, because cell signal sucks at racetracks. I just don't. You're only going to be able to send so many files before things get hectic. So you want to be able to set things up the right way the first time. So.
Definitely. And I think so many times you can look at someone's data after an event and see their trends and see kind of the strengths and the weaknesses of that driver and where there's opportunities that we can work on, and then build a way for that driver to go to the track, see how they're doing in those areas and kind of evaluate themselves and then work on it. And you can always build a way for somebody to do that. It's just, it takes that a little bit of prep. The more prep you do, the easier it is at the event, which is like everything else with racing,
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. All right, Matt. Well, I think that's a wrap. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, this was really great. I love talking about cars. I was so excited when you reached out, and we get to do this, and I hope we get to do another one.
We will. Trust me. I have more questions on data, I'm sure.
Awesome.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.